Welcome back. Welcome in. It's Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. It's a Paramount podcast. I'm Mike Casazza, joined by Chris Anderson. Chris, we have to talk fast and finish this quickly because we're going to talk about football recruiting and the transfer portal. Pretty good chance by the time we finish this episode, maybe by the time I finish this long, meandering sentence, that somebody else will have joined and refreshed this conversation. Needless to say, fast and furious time for the football program right now.
Yeah, I felt like every couple hours there was a new commitment coming in. Every single day there was three, four, five guys committing. Um, we let's say we kind of predicted this is how it was going to go. This was how this was going to work. West Virginia had to replace 50 plus players basically. What was it? 23 guys graduating or exhausting their eligibility. Another 29 players entering the NCAA transfer portal. There was going to be a lot of guys, and we mentioned. I think we wrote a whole story. One of us did, or we talked about it, or both that it was going to be a rolling situation where there's going to be four or five guys coming in for a visit every single day. And naturally, when four or five, 10 guys come in every single day for 2 weeks straight, the commitments are going to come in two, three, four times, two or three, four guys every single day for a couple weeks straight. And that's pretty much what's happened so far. There is still time, as you noted. We're recording this Monday morning for guys to trickle in. Report day was Saturday, but with these transfers, with these guys you're trying to get in for spring semester, yes, it starts today, but they can still trickle in a little bit later. So is a chance for a couple more additions, especially sometime this week.
Who was the kicker from Florida State a couple years ago that transferred mid-semester?
Grothaus.
Yeah, that guy taught me enrollment dates are just numbers on paper.
Well, and even last year with the Northwestern guys, because they do
Yeah,
the graduation and with the
gorgeous.
trimesters, and they showed up in like March. So
hmm So yeah, so in theory, so explain the significance of the January 12th date because that's a bookend date here, correct?
well, for West Virginia, the Saturday the 11th was report day. That's when the guys who were already on the team or the commitments or the transfers who had committed earlier, that's when they were supposed to report. That's when they're supposed to move in. That's when you have the big team meeting of, hey, here we are. Like, let's all meet. This is what the next few weeks are going to be like, and so on and so forth. So that's the big day of everybody moving in, January 11th.
How do you think? Oh, heck, you're in Richmond. You don't know. You got a little bit of snow in Richmond, though, right?
Yeah, I got a whole inch and it shut the whole city down for
Oh,
weeks.
well, we did that a couple times over, but I'm just wondering about so many people moving in on Friday and like, oh my gosh, they missed the snow. I'm trying to think of somebody who's from a southern state here. Um, Help me out, Chris. Who's somebody from a place that might not see snow that just moved in?
Well, I mean, well, a couple of those recruits that just came from like Florida and stuff. They're,
Jacksonville
I
State,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's to say the Jacksonville State, but not Florida, but yeah, Alabama. But um, again, like Noel Devine's coming up as a coach, and then bringing a recruit that's going to be here in a couple weeks. I'm wondering if there's going to be snow in a couple weeks for that kid coming up. But I mean, even like Amir Leonard John Charles, like he enrolled this week, but that's
There you go.
Tennessee. I don't know if they see actual snow in Tennessee. I know they see some ice and stuff in Nashville, but um, I got
What's
Michael
Sammy
Hasty.
Etienne?
Yeah, Michael Hasty. He's a spring enrollee. He's from Georgia. He's probably never seen it before. So
Well, I don't know. This is what I'm wondering. Like, okay, I got here on Saturday, let's say, maybe Friday, and they're like, I missed the snow, thank goodness. And then it hammered them, not hammered them, but like they got a couple inches on Saturday morning that I'm sure they were surprised about, like just going, is this the best thing for me? What's it? Checking their phone, like, oh, it's 74 back home. I was wondering about that homesickness creeping in there.
yeah.
Although, where is the home, Chris? Because more fluid than ever in college football, players. There's a guy in the class now. This will be his fifth school in 5 years. I don't know how many guys have actually done that, but two junior colleges, and now a third Division One school, FBS. Actually, no, he was in an FCS school. We can get a lot of the trivia here too, but this is so crazy and so difficult to keep track of. But I know that it's heightened because at least the interest is heightened because of the coaching change and everything else you just mentioned seems a little bit more year to year. Coaching change not, but the graduation and the transfer portal. I don't know if you'll have 60 players every year, ideally not, but this sort of free for all in between semesters after bowl games, I think it's going to be, if not the new normal, then pretty close. No,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I was going through it, I should have looked up this number beforehand, but off the top of my head, I mean, out of the 24 transfers who have committed to West Virginia publicly so far, and that again, just to be clear, there's going to be people. Oh, wait, I thought it was 25. Davion Walker, the wide receiver who committed the other day, technically he's a junior college player. He is not
Yeah.
a transfer portal guy. He was at Vanderbilt, but most recently was at junior college, so he is simply a recruit, a junior college traditional recruit. But the other 24, God, I mean, it's like 18 of them are seniors. So
Yeah.
it's you're going to be doing it all over again. These guys only have 1 year of eligibility left. And for good reason, West Virginia needs to overhaul everything, fill in all these spots, bring in experience. So, yeah, they're going to be targeting transfers with a lot of experience, which tend to be juniors and seniors, guys with 1 year, maybe 2 years of eligibility remaining. So, yeah, West Virginia is going to be doing this all over again next January.
Unbelievable. And this hadn't really happened. Like, I mean, it's funny to think about it, but Brown really got hit pretty hard. Neil Brown, of course, got hit pretty hard after some of his early to middle seasons because the transfer portal was just picking players from his roster on the regular. They weren't winning. It wasn't like the most fun place to be. He even said stuff like that too. He's trying to make the program have more of an anchor on the players. I just, man, can a coach even do that now? Like, you could have a water slide and a mini golf and like an arcade in the team facility. You could have the best stuff, and guys are just going to go everywhere now too. And this just seems strange because for whatever reason, West Virginia did not have a lot of turnover last year, Chris. This year, totally different. And then just because what you said right there, the number of 1 year players, West Virginia, I'm not sure. I think has a healthy number of seniors on the roster that were already here coming back. Not 23, but that number certainly goes up when you add all the transfers, and you're going to probably have a few more before too long. This is it's not gonna be eye opening. I think people will be pretty numb to it. Just general impressions, Chris. We'll get into some of the specifics about players' positions, where they helped, where they might yet need help, but just takeaways here. I'll start because I just put you on the spot here. You can think of one here. It occurred to me that when you're working at such a big number, as you've explained, and we've kicked around a couple times, you're gonna have to just get bodies at some point, which is a terrible thing to say because this guy a body, is he just a guy? Yeah, but no, but maybe. Who knows? It's up to that player and the coaches. Ideally, you're not targeting somebody who's just gonna take up a pair of cleats. But you have to get people on campus and you got to get people enrolled and you have to make sure you don't have a zero on a depth chart or like a question mark in a depth chart. Were they just taking guys initially? No, but I think they were taking guys they knew they could get. They didn't have a lot of risk and maybe not a ton of reward either, but just get people in the fold and start filling things out. They never really closed any doors in that early process. Maybe quarterback, probably quarterback, but that's always an exception because it's quarterback. They've continued to fill spots that they filled early, and they've actually started to add some pretty decent players now. It looks like highly rated, productive, familiarity with the coaches, whether it's the head coach or a position coach, or they've been an opponent or something like that. And then guys who just played a bunch of college football now, where there are fewer questions. And if that means you're layering at a position, oh well. If that means you're adding somebody who it doesn't look like what you're used to because the profile of the player, the position doesn't really matter because different strokes, different folks when it comes to the coaching staff. Just seemed like there were two waves here. Early on, get players, come back around. All right, now let's get like capital P players. And I'm not even sure they have any of those, but certainly a more impressive, more productive crop of players they've had in the second wave. And to me, that does kind of make sense because that timeline I tried to explain there. You need a lot of people. Start with the people you know you can get. Make sure you don't have a blank spot. And then layer it, come back players who are available, who took their time, who took their visits that you still had a chance with, and add and add and add as best as you can.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the big thing here is, people are, oh, where are the guys from the such and such schools and the Power Four transfers and all that stuff? That's not going to happen. Like I hate to burst some bubbles here on where West Virginia sits on the pecking order, but West Virginia is not going to pluck a 1,000-yard receiver from a fellow Power Four school that's transferring. Like, that's just the odds of that happening are pretty small. But where they can hit is finding guys that the most likely two pools that they're pulling from are the productive, extremely productive in this case, guys from lower level schools. some group of five, some FCS, some Division two. And then also the guys who were further down the depth chart had some more power four programs. And that seems to be what they've done here. Like you said, started filling in with some guys from bigger schools later. That was again, that was the big complaint earlier. Oh man, cool, we got another D2 guy, got another Jacksonville State guy, got another, FCS guy. Where's everybody else? And then all of a sudden it was Texas A&M, UNC, LSU, Washington, NC State, so on. So it's like, oh, there you go. There's some of those guys. But again, are they going to be a guy who threw for 4,000 yards or 5,000 yards? No, probably not. But not many schools are actually able to do that. So I think West Virginia did a nice job plucking from the two pools that they are most likely to be able to get transfers from, and really like starting to narrow things down. They went for it at defensive backfield.
Ooh,
They were like, "Hey, man, we're gonna get like 10 transfers. They're all gonna be seniors, and they're all gonna be productive, and they're just all gonna get thrown out there, and it's gonna be like, tell us, you guys, show us who's gonna be starting, who's going to be in the depth chart. This is it." And honestly, I think that's the right approach when you have a room that was as depleted as it was.
yeah. Man, I don't know if I want to be a receiver in spring football. Because I just got a feeling you're going to have a lot of like peckish defensive backs coming after you
Yeah,
day after day after day, trying to earn a spot in the island right now too. And like you're right, they're all similarly skilled in size, experience, travels, all that stuff. But the one thing they have in common is this is their last swing at it. That'll be a fun dynamic, I think there too. Also, you forgot tight end from Iowa.
oh
Can't go
yeah,
wrong. Man, that's
that
like
that
that's a
works, right?
factory, right?
Usually,
Uh, it's like the linebacker U of college football.
uh-huh.
Let's go into I don't know, where do you want to pick out here?
Well, let's go with the defensive backfield since we already kind
Yeah,
of
let's start there.
pushed there.
Um, so who is guiding this search? Because maybe Gabe Franklin was sequestered somewhere. This guy does not have much of a social thumbprint out there. Maybe he was working the phones, but certainly once Rod West came in, things started to pick up a little bit. You obviously Zach Alley knew some people and knew some things that he wanted as far as like specs, but they were on some people even before these position coaches came in, and then just bing, 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 one by one, safety, corner, hybrid, and to the point now where like I don't know where they'd put somebody else. They would take him, I'm sure, for the obvious concerns, but it does seem like they covered a lot of bases here.
Absolutely. I found it funny early on where guys were committing and there was no defensive coordinator, there was no cornerbacks coach, there was no safeties coach. One player, Jordan Walker, was like, "Hey, I was on campus finishing my visit, and they were like, hey, I think we hired a safeties coach. You want to call him?" Like that's how that happened. Like there was no safeties coach while he was visiting. They're like, "Hey, we think we just hired a guy. You want to give him a quick FaceTime call and polish off this visit?" Um, but again, I don't know, like for those positions, like I think you just find guys like like with Rodriguez's say offensive style. Like, hey, you need certain type of offensive linemen. You need guys that can play and block in his scheme. You need certain types of running backs. But with the secondary, you're like, hey man, I just need dudes. I need guys that are just going to ball hawk. I need guys that are going to try to shut things down. I need guys that have the right mentality. I need guys that have produced already before. And that seemed to be kind of the limit of their criteria when searching for guys. And they just went out and got them and figured out the coaching stuff later.
Could we get Jordan Walker out of jail? Because you just incarcerated this young man.
What was that?
He would not tell you Gabe Franklin was the position
No,
coach.
oh yeah, by the way, he would not tell me. And I was like, I think I shared with you
Yeah.
the DM that he sent me because I was like, you want to tell me who that is? And he was
Nope.
like, nope, I do not. You find out in a couple days. And I found out other ways and we put the story out there. But yeah, he was like, nah, I don't want to tell you. You'll find out. And found
Soldier.
it funny that I was very curious.
Yeah. So is he for a while though, I would guess too.
Yes.
Let's go back there. We can go into favorites and players and things like that, but you mentioned get players and so on. And so many times in this, you're doing a lot of projection because some of these players may have not played at a a high group of five or a power four level or have been injured or anything like that. Just they've been in the program, haven't been on the field. Then you've got guys who've been, group of fives. Maybe they bounced around a little bit and they've been a little bit more productive or perhaps even very productive, but not at a power four level. So you're doing a lot of projecting and finger crossing, but also relying on your guys with the whistles too. There are certain attributes they're going to look for. The one guy that I noticed right away, and not because you frantically messaged me and said, "Hey, can you write a story on this guy?" But when they got Will Davis, they went down to like Virginia Union, which is an HBCU school, small level of football. Been pretty productive, won a lot of games, like 20 games the past 2 years, but he's played pretty regularly. But man, Chris, his stats like TFLs, sacks, interceptions, interception return touchdowns. I don't know what he's going to do in the Power Four. I know that he was very good at that level of football. Again, not the same. I understand that. But if you're looking for, hey, can I ask this guy to do this? Can I rely on him to make a football play? Just follow instruction, follow instinct. There's hints sometimes in film and in stats, and it seems like this guy right there is that, but it's not just him, too. It looks like a number of players they brought in attack the ball, were around the ball, were on defenses that were pretty aggressive or swarming, and also seemed like they won some football games, too. Um, Gonna need a lot of that in the secondary based on what happened the past few years, and big step in that direction.
Just like to correct myself there for a second. I think I said 24 transfer commitments, 25. 25 transfer commitments.
So the JUCO is 26, but not
Juco would
26.
make 26, yeah.
Okay.
So um again, big ads there all around. Secondary. I was trying to finalize the number. I was like, did I have that right? One, two, three, four safeties, all seniors. One, two, three, four corners. It looks like again, they got the safeties, they got the spears. I'm sure there'll be some guys moving around. We've already talked about one of the returners, KK Tarnu, who was a corner under Zach Alley and then moved over to safety at West Virginia, kind of sort of bounced around a little bit. Might be back at corner. We currently have him listed as safety. We'll see. So there's be some movement there, especially in the spring. But yeah, 25 transfer commitments. Was that eight? I just said in the secondary. One, two, three,
Mhm.
four. One, two, three, four. All seniors. Figure it out, boys. Like
Yeah.
just throw them out there and figure it out. I think that's. I mean, they completely 25 people in those defensive back rooms combined between all, I mean, the returners and all the new transfers.
Yeah.
It's a lot of new dudes coming in, but that's okay given the production the last couple of years.
They got starters out of this group too, didn't they? Safety or corner?
Yeah, I think so. I think for sure. I mean, Michael Coates,
Yeah.
that was a big one, and that's one that we talked about, and that was one that I don't I don't want to put a dollar figure on it. I have not heard a dollar figure, but I have not seriously have not heard a dollar figure at all. But that was one where West Virginia said, I think whatever dollar figure they set it pretty high and said, we're willing to go here just to keep you from leaving campus and going to visit Ole Miss. Like, what is it going to do? It is like a car dealership, like a car. So like, what is it going to take for you to sign this paperwork right now and not leave here? Um, and whatever it was, West Virginia met it and or exceeded it, and he's on. And I think for good reason. Again, I put out the stat. It was like he was number 7 in coverage grade from PFF out of the entire country, out of all schools, FBS, I believe even FCS that had at least 400 snaps.
Mhm.
And of the 6 guys ahead of him, I believe it was like 5 of them are going to the NFL this year. So like he's the number 1 or number 2 returning cornerback in coverage grade in the entire country.
Mhm.
Now,
Uh, Jordan Scruggs also looks like a player too. That's another
love him.
possibility to start.
Yeah.
Fred Perry, safety. I mean, I know you're looking at some of the Jacksonville State guys, and they started there, and like there's a familiarity. So maybe I don't want to say favoritism, but certainly they would be favorites to pick up things quickly and impress the coaches. But he would be one. Trying to think of the other guys that came from Jacksonville
I
State.
mean, Devontae Golden Nelson from Akron. I mean, I think he started for multiple years. I mean, his story obviously kind of took headlines here for the last few days of the is he in or is he not? But that's a guy who was a multi-year starter that maybe he's another starter. Again, like you said, lots of guys with starting experience here for West Virginia.
Another place that they did some work on that seems like it's pretty impressive, but you might think, wait, why would they do that? Because they have Jaheim White. But they added two running backs, very different players, but different levels of productivity as well. Big guy, small guy, experienced, maybe fast, maybe more of a bully, just different bodies there. But with Jaheim White, you don't have that CJ Donaldson component anymore. Jalen Anderson's still in the portal trying to find a spot. They really don't have other backs they know about right now. Maybe Dunbar and boy, who's the other freshman from last year? I forgot his name.
Hubbard.
Yeah, maybe they have great off seasons and springs and summers that can do it. That's another big guy in there that can maybe make things happen. Not the same as Donaldson, certainly not the same as Ty Edwards. But did it surprise you that they added two running backs, or are you surprised that maybe they could add another one there, like just two? Because obviously running back's so important to Rodriguez, and that's how you go from I don't know Jason Colson to Jason Gwaltney to Steve Slayton and end up okay too.
No, I mean, not too shocking. You lost two, but you weren't not expecting, but Jalen Anderson and CJ Donaldson, two guys that were supposed had eligibility remaining. They're both gone to the portal. You replaced two with the portal. When I agree in that, like, if you told me, hey, they're going to add, an All American, now a lower school All American, but still an All American in LJ Turner, that rushed for 1,200 yards in 8 games, take it. And then like still can't get over. I don't think I've ever seen a 6'4" running back. Like that's enormous. 6'4", 230-pound running back. That's Ty Edwards, not Turner, excuse me. Um, and Edwards also over 1,000 yards last year at Northern Iowa. So some big boys coming in and playing running back for West Virginia. But that's pretty good. Like you said, there's gonna be a lot of running going on here. A
Yeah.
lot of running going on at West Virginia under Rich Rodriguez's offense. And I have to double check. Let me see here. Like, I feel like did Jacksonville State have multiple running backs that they were kind of handling? Yeah, two, not quarterback. Daggone. Take it back. I was about to say I think but it's like all Trey Stewart down at Jacksonville State this past year. It
This
was
year,
all him.
yeah. But
Yeah, this
also he
year.
was pretty amazing before he got on
Right.
campus and they turned him into a great player. He turned him into a better. So, well, there you are. All right, you froze. You worried me for a second there.
Yeah. Sorry
That
about
was
that.
the old Rick Trickett freeze play on the offensive line, but no, that was just some digitization there too. Speaking of running, gonna have a lot of runners. That begins and ends. You think sometimes in the backfield when it comes to Rodriguez. And speaking of large people running the ball, new quarterback. You mentioned Texas A&M. Divisive, Chris. We kind of mentioned him a little bit, like in how did he not play at Fresno State? What happened to him there too? But um, that's one we have to mention if we're going to talk about this because getting a quarterback who is big, who has played some SEC opposition, probably has, I would say, a nice chip on his shoulder, powered by confidence and also a little bit of like, I'm not sure spite's the right word, but just not happy didn't work out twice now for him. Again, one more chance there, and I'm thinking about the old Rodriguez day with the island of misfit toys, and you just kind of get cast off in different players who don't look the part. Too big this, too small that, too slow for here. Hey, bring them all in, coach them up, and see what happens. And that's not a fair a fair description of this guy because it seems like he can't play, but he's not Nico Marchio. He's not Scotty Fox. He's different. That's just a different guy. But look at there's a lot of things you can do if you're trying to start getting a direction on offense. Then with your quarterback here that you pick up from Texas A&M early in the process, but certainly pretty important addition here if we're talking about what they've done, what they might yet want to do. But Jalen Henderson being his name. Again, a good building block here for what they're trying to do at this point in the transfer portal.
Yeah. If you have a new coach, new offense, new quarterbacks coach, new offense coordinator, new everything, there is zero reason to kind of come in with, hey, well, let's just try out what was already here. Like you have to bring in somebody else that's, I don't want to say your guy, but you're going to be having an open competition no matter what. So might as well bring in somebody new and big and exciting. And I think Henderson fits that. I mean, he had that spark when he played for Texas A&M when he had the opportunity. Um, he was extremely productive, injury prone. That's what kind of kept him, broke his arm, forearm in the bowl game, and then had battled injuries the whole next year, fell down the depth chart, and that's why he's in the portal. But if you can find that spark of those last few games of 2023, then he might be the ideal guy for Rich Rodriguez's offense. So it was worth the gamble, I think. They're needless to say, Mike, quarterback's a tough market out there. It is a seller's market. Um, if you are a good quarterback and you enter the portal, you are going to get paid. You are going to have your choice of school. Like, period. End of story. More than any other position, except, I mean, offensive line, defensive line, and quarterback. Those are the three where you can step into the portal and name your price, basically. So for West Virginia to kind of, this is going to sound derogatory, but to go into the bargain bin here and find somebody like Jalen Henderson, I think is pretty darn good because this is a guy who may be sitting in the bargain bin on in the portal, but maybe somebody who ends up being one of the best signees at the quarterback position in this transfer class.
All right, let's wrap up positives here too. I'll just really quickly say this: got a kicker, that's fine. I mean, may not be done there. They can't do what they've been doing. I would think they want to have something a little bit more.
This is a kickoff specialist who kicks it into the end zone.
Yeah, that's fine, but
Ta-da!
they'll probably need a place kicker beyond that too. I would think. We'll see. Happy with what they did at tight end, getting Jacob Barrick in, getting Pascusi from Iowa. Those are good players, big bodies, not productive receivers. But guess what? That's not what you're signing up for here. That's fine. We mentioned all the other positions. Probably one of the players that you and I both agree that we like the most, and maybe a position where they've helped themselves. Where you're like, oh, did they need help? Yeah, they need help at linebacker. And they pull out two players here, different parts of their career, but pedigree seems like it's there for one, production definitely there for the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we're going through and looking position by position, I don't know why, and I think I'm guilty of it as well. Linebacker didn't come up that much of
All
what's
right.
the biggest need in the portals. Oh, corner, safety. Oh, how about some more receivers? What about linebacker? You lost Trey Lathan, you lost Trotter. Like you are losing a lot there, a lot of productivity, a lot of experience. And they hadn't really replaced it. And even, they had brought in two recruits, which are nice, but they're high school kids. One of them's more of a bandit than he is a true linebacker. And that's Ramondo Johnson, who I'm talking about there. And then the first transfer you bring in is Ashton Woods. Good looking prospect, going to be a redshirt freshman. Is he going to be able to contribute right away? Don't know. We'll see. And then they go and get Chase Wilson from Colorado State. And I know Colorado State can leave a bad taste in some West Virginia fans' mouth, given the, let's say, mixed results of the transfers from there. But he's been extremely productive for years. And he is a guy that, if you go and look at some of his PFF marks as well, he's not just he's not just some guy that dives into the pile at the end so he can make sure he gets that half a tackle right there. He is a guy that is anywhere and everywhere on the field and can do pass coverage. Let me say that again, Michael. It is possible for linebackers to play pass defense.
No, wait, no, hold on. Hold on,
Serious.
what?
I, I want to see it.
But as a
But
cover three guy, right?
yeah. So he has good marks in pass coverage. He can make the tackles. He's more of a well-rounded linebacker than West Virginia's had. Again, I'm not trying to take anything from Trotter and Lathan. They are productive guys. They are
Mhm.
better at some things than others. It's pretty obvious. They are not guys that West Virginia wanted to lose. Absolutely not. Like, let's be very clear about that. Wilson is a guy though that is very more well-rounded and can handle all the aspects of playing that linebacker position. So I think that was a huge addition for WVU.
All right. Let's go to the sides. And I don't want to say weaknesses, Chris, because one, probably not fair, because if we're saying, well, how can you know that these guys you think are great are actually great? Well, how can you say that the guys you think are weaknesses are actually weaknesses? That's not very fair. It's also not fun. But also, I'm just not sure they've really dropped the ball or allowed a blind spot to linger here too. But there are two positions that, maybe three, probably do need to talk about. I would say in some order: offensive line, defensive line, receiver. And G Mike, those are pretty much the only positions you haven't talked about yet. Yeah. And again, you could tilt this and look at it different ways. Like they've added some receivers who've been productive in different places. They also have maybe some recruits who can play. I'm trying to think with Jaleel Hall, right? He's a guy that's big and fast and strong. Maybe he can play right away. Highly rated. I think he's a 4-star, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so there's help there. Don't forget about the recruiting class and receivers a spot. You can do that. Maybe not necessarily offensive line, defensive line. Where do they go? I guess where do they go on defensive line? And then they've made some additions on the offensive line. The trouble is that they just need so many players there too. Where do we begin on this one? Let's start with receivers. Is that all right? Because I think the other two are probably longer conversations. Receiver
Yeah.
got some players. Maybe you don't know about them apart from the obvious one, which would be Cam Vaughn.
I mean, is this going to be a yearly conversation we have where,
Yeah.
hey, West Virginia's got a lot of number two receivers. Where's the number one? And I feel like that's the same kind of way with maybe what they got out of the portal. I like all of these guys. Like I like them. Do I love any of them? Am I like, holy cow, that's the dude for any of the guys that West Virginia got? Probably not. Like, I mean, Cam Vaughn, productive. Um, Oren Singleton, big fan of his. Again, they brought in four transfers, one junior college edition, and Davion Walker. That's five guys to add to their two-man recruiting class out of high school. So that room has been refilled. But who is going to take over? Because again, a lot of these guys seem like more of a slot receiver type that, hey, that guy's going to make a few, nice plays and make a couple plays here. But where's the explosive guy that's going to jump over the cornerback's head and catch a pass when you need it on 3rd and 12?
Yeah.
Like, again, that's hot commodity. It's not
Yeah.
exactly like there's a lot of them in the market, and there's not a lot of them that are going to be in West Virginia's price range in the market. But I thought they did a nice job filling the room with production. Like they're not what are the guys on the board called Jags? Just another guy.
Mhm.
They're not Jags. Okay. They're above Jags, but I'm not sure they're the alpha receiver. Okay. So
Mhm.
don't get me wrong there. Whoever's listening, don't get in the YouTube comments about this. But again, I like the additions. I would rate it like a B minus though. And to your point of still feels like there's something else that could have been added.
Still time too. Let's do offensive line because the defensive line might be a longer conversation. Robbie Martin, good prospect, needs to play college football, but that's a guy that could have ended up here, might have ended up here, didn't end up here. I don't know, Chris, what side of the ball Macanioli's going to play, but he
It's
played both
offense.
sides. Okay, but are
It's
we sure
offense,
though?
yeah. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so that's a good guy. I mean, that's a guy who was recruited to play that side of the ball in the SEC. Wyatt Minor, big body, some experience, but again, he was at the FCS level here. And then Walter Young Bear. I believe those are the only offensive line they've added so far, correct?
That's correct. Four of them, yeah.
Not enough. Now we're at 14, which you have a realistic shot at the two deep because you got 11 if you take out the walk-ons. Is Minor going to be a scholarship player? Doesn't matter because you have 105. So let's not even talk about that. Not enough. You probably want to have, I would say, at least 15 to get through practices. So they're going to keep going there. Again, you'd really rather not rely on recruits to give you depth in the recruiting class through freshmen. They have some possibilities there too. But are they done? Did they do enough here? Doesn't seem like the question mark to me.
And not done. There's no way. Like
Yeah.
they can't be done with what they got right now. And again, I like some of these additions. Again, Robbie Martin, something I said on signing day last year. Hey, keep in mind, you might be back here in a year talking
Yep.
Robbie Martin because he
Yep.
was on the phone with Neil Brown until midnight the night before signing day. And here he is. He's a good prospect. Like him a lot. Is he ready right now? Not sure. Um, Walter Youngbear, that's probably somebody that you're like, hey, plug him in at one of the guard positions. Like pretty much just expect him to start at one of the interior lineman positions. So you got one of those spots covered. Um, Kimo Macalayoni
That
from
was
LSU.
McConioli.
McConnelly. Okay.
No, McConioli.
McConnelly. I like it.
McConioli.
I mean, big time prospect, big strong dude. He's going to be one of those guys. Like, hey, he doesn't have a lot of experience, yeah, but he has been in a program at
Yep.
LSU for 4 years. Like, he's not coming in being like, hey, we got to get rid of some of the baby fat. Hey, we got to get him ready. Nah, he's going to be ready. Okay, it's just a matter of he's not fighting 15 5-star recruits down at LSU for playing time anymore. Again, no offense to the guys that are in Morgantown right now, but a little clearer path to playing time, especially given the departures via the transfer portal and graduation at West Virginia. So I I think you found out of those four, two starters for 2025, Young Bear and Chemo.
Think on
And
chemo.
then
Okay.
yeah, I think it's ready to go there. I think he can step right in and start. Minor, I think is going to need some time. He's already developed his body more than what it was in high school. Martin's going to need another year, I think, but he'll be in contention. I think Martin will be in contention for a two deep spot. Especially, I mean, he's going to be a redshirt freshman, so I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way that he's not ready right now. He's
Mhm.
young, extremely young. But still feel like because you got those four, then you look at the returners, like maybe Bosley, maybe Livingston, maybe Nick Cray. I mean,
You
we've
prefer
heard good
Livingston
things
because he can
about him.
snap it, right? So that would take a a worry offensively.
Like Livingston at center, Young Bear at one guard, Cray at one guard, Chemo and Bosley at the two tackles. Like it's not the worst starting five in the world, not not by a long shot, but I still do think you're running with a lot of unknowns there, and so it would be nice to add somebody else with a little more experience. But behind quarterback, offensive line might be the most difficult thing to find in the transfer portal, especially at tackle.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. They don't leave, especially big programs. They don't leave. Makani gives me like Fatorma Moba vibes. This guy's been in the program, strong guy, come in, knows what to do, how to do it, can move some people. Doesn't hurt probably that he helped play both sides too. So we'll see. Finally, Chris, can you play defensive line? You might get a phone call before this is over. Where are we going here?
Zero, maybe one. The Braden Siders, who was a late transfer addition. I put him at a bandit. Maybe he is more of a defensive end than a bandit, whatever you want to call him. But
Got to stay healthy too.
yeah, so they're really just rolling the dice with what they got. They could like, I mean, if you told me, hey, your starting three for next year is Visterinen, Hammond Russell, and well, I was about to say Asani Redwood, but I mean that's
Yeah.
they kind of play the same position, so you don't really have a nose in there. But that's pretty good three. And you feel it like you got to look at Gabriel, you got to look at Kinsler. McIntyre was like part of the conversation before injuries, so it's not. I mean, it's a talented room, and I love the recruiting class. Huge fan of the recruiting class that they brought in. So they got bodies, they got future pieces. They have a couple returning pieces I really like. But I
Not
mean,
buying it,
just roll.
Chris. Sorry, not
Just,
buying it.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
buying it.
But it's just
Those
rolling
are
with zero. Like, I mean, again, you maybe you count Siders here, the Wyoming transfer. You can count him as a defensive end, edge rusher, bandit, whatever you want to call him. But I don't like the idea of any position, regardless of the situation, going through the transfer portal with a zero.
just not going to happen, right? That there's going
Yeah.
to be some sort of expenditure here soon, I would think. Yeah, the don't forget Micaiah Byerson's there too. Another pretty athletic guy. He can play end. But you're right, a bunch of tackles and noses right now. And where's your speed guy, your pass rusher off the edge? But also, I mean, here's the concern: you're gonna need some bodies if you want to play multiple than even front. I don't want to get into 3-3-5, 4-2-5 stuff. It's gonna be multiple. They are odd front and stack people in their backgrounds, but from Rodriguez's press conference to some of the things that Ali has talked about when he's at Oklahoma, multiplicity is good. But if you're gonna play four defensive linemen, you're gonna need a different type of body than if you're going to play three defensive linemen. Just naturally, like there's different skills and different techniques and all that. I don't want to get into all that stuff, but you also need more hats, so they're going to have to do that. And I don't think status quo is going to be where this ends. I'd be very surprised. And you're right, if the one guy from Wyoming is going to be a rush end or a guy who can put his hand on the ground as a linebacker or something like that, a bandit, whatever they call it, that pretty much enters the conversation. Is he going to be a three down lineman? I don't know. We'll see. So maybe he's just a guy who's a hybrid, not specialist, but he fits in a certain attack or package, whatever. But just man, just you would feel better with like a MOBA, for lack of a better phrase, for someone like that who's kind of a stronger veteran presence who fits that profile of who they can get, who they can afford, let's be honest, and can get on campus and actually do some things, which makes me think they can't be done yet. But like we haven't heard a whole lot of whispers or visits or anything like that, or be on call in case this guy commits for the defensive line, which just seems odd to me because they've been so active everywhere else.
All right. Give me your sneaky pick for transfer commit of the class. The guy's going to make the biggest impact next year. Let's phrase it that way.
Next year, I like Ty Edwards. I don't know why. There's just something about that. Like he doesn't look the part, but that's not an accident. That means that there's something there. And I think if some of the I'm not sure how much yardage he'll get behind Jaheim White. Probably not a whole lot, but a guy who could wear teams down, who could, because they're going to run the ball. And if you give him a series or two series, maybe he opens things up for Jaheim White, but maybe also he starts leaning on people. He can get you short yardage. He can get you goal line carries. That has not been Jaheim White's strength. But also, Jaheim White doesn't have to do that now, even in the absence of CJ Donaldson. That would be one. And then again, I don't know what Davis is going to do. I just want to watch Davis because that productivity at a different level, well, he's going to come in thinking he can do that. Like he's making this jump because he thinks he can do it. Maybe he can't. Maybe he bounces off people and he can't get those plays, but that's what I want to watch on the defensive side.
I get I like it a lot. Um, I don't want to be boring, but I think maybe not the most productive, but the most surefire contributor to this class is a tie for me between Walter Youngbear. I think you're just literally just penciling him in as a guard.
Yeah.
Like it's just done. He's starting. Forget about it. And Michael Coates, I'm just such a big fan. I think when you have production at that position and you are coveted by some of the top schools in the country, again, I one day I hope to find out what that dollar figure was or what West Virginia pitched to him, because I mean his next visit was Ole Miss, and
He's
anybody that
not coming
knows
back.
college football knows
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin opens up the old pocketbook for his players. So for West Virginia to lock that down and not let him go visit there, they pulled out the big guns, and I think they did so for a good reason.
Yeah, those are the right answers. I think those are probably the right answers there too. I'm thinking about I'm doing my stupid thing where I try to come at you with a different angle there. And Davis just has my attention. There's something interesting about him. We'll see. He might not play a whole lot or very well, but like, and then again, I just like big running backs. I just like big running backs, especially like in October and November in West Virginia. I think there's a place for that, but you could think of a bunch of different guys on offense. Like we haven't talked about Vaughn. Like Vaughn's a pretty good player. Big, can run, makes catches too, and they need that. I mean, that could be your one, Chris. If we're thinking um, rank and file in terms of positions. He might be the guy there too. Funny thing is that we've done this thorough evaluation. Probably needs to be updated before too long. So hey, listen to it now, share it with your friends, and then when we have more info, we'll come back when this thing is wrapped up. Which heck, who knows when that is? When's signing day? 3 weeks away.
Yeah, but the first Wednesday of February will
Which
be
I guess we'll
signing
have a
day.
news conference this year because there's gonna be so many new guys they're introducing too, including some high
Yeah,
school guys too, perhaps, right?
yeah. As I say, at least three high school players are coming to officially visit West Virginia, not this weekend, but next weekend. So keep an eye out. Not done.
Not done. Well, not true for us, Chris. Thanks for helping me out, getting caught up on all this stuff. Like I said, fast, furious, hard to keep track of it. No one better than you, keeping your thumb on the pulse. Until then, I'm Mike Casazza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.